afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, thank you for coming. It's officially Spanish nap time. I know you're all struggling to stay awake. Hope you had your coffees. Thank you so much for coming. Today, we're going to talk about how we are using vertical video formats to counter misinformation on the platforms where we post them, from TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, maybe in Snapchat one day.
Potentially, we'll see. To introduce us to who we are, I'm Carmela, this is Enrique, and as you can see, we are incredibly serious journalists. Actually, let's swap sides really quick, just so we can see. If anyone wants a picture, let's take it now. This is kind of fun. Okay, Slay. Let's really get into who we are. My name is Carmela Boykin. I'm a TikTok host and producer at The Washington Post, also known as The Washington Post Universe. Formerly known as the Washington Post TikTok team, but now it encompasses TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reels. Our team are 3-time Webby winners, which is pretty exciting for us. We won 2 Webbies this year, and I joined the Washington Post in December of 2021. So I've been here about 3 years doing this work. Before this, I was a television news reporter in Rochester, New York. I was a traditional reporter, so I would do the typical morning shift at 5 a.m. of, good morning, my name is Carmela, I'm standing outside this scene. And now I do kind of a hybrid of those 2 jobs. I do a bit of theater with my Washington Post work and traditional journalism.
My name is Enrique. I never wanted to be on camera, but somehow I ended up making TikToks. Currently, I work as the Thomson Reuters Foundation's TikTok lead for our LGBTQ+ news brand Openly, and I also write my own stories. And I also make my own content on my personal channel about European Union politics as a journalist, about mis and disinformation, about queer topics. Someone called me an EU influencer, which is kind of weird, but it's kind of cool at the same time. And I'm also a cat dad, but I'm not wearing any cat outfit today. You missed the outfits from yesterday.
It's in your heart.
Okay, oh yeah. So we have a problem. We know that we have a huge issue today, for years actually, but particularly today, with misinformation on social media. Misinformation has flooded the platforms that we are on as users, as journalists, and it has become a huge obstacle to create more better societies, to tackle challenges like climate change, elections, democracy, the rights of minorities, the rights of women, public health, if you remember, vaccine, misinformation, and yeah, so we know about it. The question is, what do we do with all the misinformation that we have on social media?
We also know some facts, which is that people, of course, get news from social media. And we know that based on research from Pew Research Center, overall, just over half of US adults say that they, at least sometimes, get the news from social media. And that about half of the TikTok users under 30 say they use it to keep up with politics and political news. And if that's the case, it's really important for news organizations and journalists to use those resources, and that's what Enrique and I are both going to talk about today. One of those questions is, how do you counter misinformation on the platform? We're of course not in control of the platforms, but while we're working on them, there are different things we can do to counter the misinformation that is on there. One of those things is doing debunking videos, and those videos need to speak the language of the platform. What does that mean? It means it needs to look native to the platform. It needs to look like it belongs. We've talked about this before, but as you're scrolling on social media, your videos are going to be between cute puppies and thirst traps and babies, and how does your content look like it actually belongs there? Another thing is creating content based on responses to misinformation. So what on the platforms are people asking? What do people want to know? What do we need to clarify? So here's an example of a video after the presidential debate between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Donald Trump said some statements that were untrue, and so we are not only fact-checking, but giving additional information as to where that misinformation will have come from.
Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
Is this real? No. Explain. This claim started in Springfield, Ohio, and as misinformation snowballed together. To be clear, no credible accounts of pets being abducted or eaten in Springfield have been documented. This tweet was posted by a popular account. It is a screenshot of a Facebook post claiming someone's neighbor's daughter's friend discovered that her neighbor, supposedly Haitian immigrants, were trying to eat her cat, and that apparently, according to rangers and police, police, it was happening to ducks and geese at a local park. The tweet also included this picture. I see. Then it was shared by right-wing people, including a Trump advisor. And then people started adding additional information to the original claim as if it were supporting evidence. Like this guy mentioning the ducks at a community meeting and this Ohio woman arrested for eating a cat. So it is real. No. This guy holding a goose comes from a Reddit post in Columbus, Ohio, an hour away. And the post hasn't been able to confirm his identity. We don't know his background and there's no evidence he's Haitian or from Springfield. The woman who reportedly ate the cat was from Canton, Ohio, 100 miles away, and according to Canton police, is a US citizen born in Canton. The guy who mentioned the ducks at a meeting is a local podcaster and wearing a sweatshirt promoting himself for mayor. And local police say they have no reports of any pets being stolen, how the original post claims. Right. Regardless, right-wing rumors made their way to a number of elected Republican officials, including J.D. Vance, who tweeted, "Reports now show pets are being abducted by Haitian illegal immigrants." But there are no reports. And as the city's government website states, the Haitian immigrants are in Springfield legally. And this is how we got to Trump saying,
and then it loops back around to the start of the video of Donald Trump's original clip. A couple things to note about this video is at the start, I don't know if you noticed, but I put a pink timeline at the top just so people had an idea of how long that clip was gonna last. I actually did a sneaky technique of that timeline bar at the top never fully ended, so that way people would keep watching. And I also put a graphic that said an explainer was incoming. That way people know that not only are they going to see the clip, but they'll get an explainer behind that clip as well.
Fact-checking is something you can do on social media. However, we also know that we will always be losing the race against misinformation. Lies spread faster than truths. Maybe AI one day can help us be as fast as misinformation. So far, we can. Particularly, we have newsrooms that might have more resources, like the Washington Post, like maybe Reuters. Some of us create content individually. There's no way that after 8 hours of working, you can fact-check things as fast as lies spread. So something that a lot of misinformation researchers have been talking about in the past few years is pre-banking. Pre-banking means basically preventing misinformation before it happens, before it spreads to people's timelines, people's feeds, and basically creating societies that are resilient to misinformation and disinformation. And this is an example of something that I tried to do on my personal account as an individual journalist with one element that I thought was very TikTok friendly.
This map will be very useful next time you're discussing trans rights in Europe. As you might know, some countries are debating self-determination or self-ID bills that will allow trans people to change their legal gender by simply going to the registry and declaring the change. Currently, in countries like Germany, they often have to wait for years and pay thousands of euros. But some people oppose self-ID laws, claiming that they threaten cisgender women's rights and make children trans. And that's where this map comes into play. All these European countries already have self-ID laws. In fact, Denmark has had it for 10 years. So if the fears about women's and children's rights were founded, we should be seeing the effects in some or many of these 11 countries, from Switzerland and Norway to Ireland and Portugal. A few months ago, a trans rights group surveyed public officials from those countries on the impact of trans self-determination. They asked whether it had been used fraudulently, whether there had been cases of regret, whether single-sex services for women had been affected, etc. Well, here are the conclusions of the research. You can pause the video to read them in detail. So save this video and send it to your friends because...
Again, like Carmela said, it's a loop. So you kind of wait, you never finish the video. What's interesting about this video is that anyone can make it. You don't need to be like an amazing video editor. You don't need a lot of resources. You can make this in your neighborhood. That's what I did when I went to visit my parents. In this video, what we saw is there were a lot, what I saw was that there were a lot of people sharing the video and a lot of people saving the video, which is precisely the goal that I had. The goal that I had is we know that Europe has been having a huge issue with misinformation around trans rights and particularly around self-determination bills. So I knew that these stories, these fake claims were going to keep coming up. They're going to keep coming up as more countries debate these laws. So what you do is to prepare a resource that people can save, that people can send to their friends so that they are, in a way, vaccinated against that kind of misinformation around a specific topic through a very visual element, which is a map, and everyone loves maps.
Can confirm, I love a map. Another way to counter misinformation is fact-checking events where we know misinformation is likely to be spread, where we know things like politicians are going to say certain things to make themselves look good. And we also want to make sure that content, when we do this, is adding native value to the social coverage. So we're not just saying, this is what was said, and this is true. Again, you want to go in and explain and add some additional value to what you're saying so people understand better. Here's an example of a video from the Democratic National Convention.
Fact-checking day one of the DNC.
We have 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what their average tax rate they pay? 8.2%.
Biden is referencing a 2021 White House study that uses a hypothetical tax system. According to the IRS, taxpayers who grossed over $77 million were taxed an average of 23.7% in 2020. That's a lot of money. Let's talk about lead.
Removing every lead pipe from schools and homes so every child can drink clean water.
Biden did get $15 billion with a bipartisan infrastructure law for lead pipe replacement, but there are nearly 10 million lead pipes that supply U.S. homes with drinking water. The EPA estimates replacing them could cost at least $45 billion. On to Medicare, but we're not eligible yet. Okay, but other people are.
We tried to expand Social Security and Medicare. Donald Trump tried to cut them year after year after year.
Trump did propose budget cuts to Medicare when in office, but they were to extend Medicare's ability to pay its debts. And many of the proposals were taken from Barack Obama, who failed to pass them in Congress. For Social Security, Trump did keep his promise not to touch those benefits. While noting Trump isn't always consistent on policies, he's also repeatedly said he won't cut benefits to Medicare or Social Security if elected again.
One thing I'd like to add about this video, just as a side anecdote, is most of the work that I do is from my apartment or from the office in front of a green screen, and a lot of the comments were saying, "Are you really there? I can't believe you're really doing something in real life." So that was interesting.
I think also Carmela's video is really cool because it's something that you will only find on the social media channel, right? While everyone else was just seeing the quotes from the
Democratic National Convention.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
You find this video that you haven't seen elsewhere, and they're adding to the conversation, they're adding new information, not just telling you what people have said. So it adds like an extra value to the product that as a user you find on TikTok. And you might have noticed that all of our videos, they're very different in a way, but they have one element in common. And it's that you always see us. You always see people. You always see the reporter. There might be stock images in the background. There might be funny animations. There might be a map. They might be more or less edited, but there's always people. And you might have heard that young people across the world, they're turning to creators, individual influencers for news. In a way, that is only people wanting to connect with people. What we're trying to do is to leverage that. We're giving people the opportunity to connect with us, to not see us as media outlets or as this abstract construction of the media. We're just people that people can connect with. And so I wanted to show another example of a video that I did keeping my audience and the conversation that they were having on social media, what they were seeing on their feeds, keeping them in mind.
You've probably heard online claims that the Nazis did not target trans people. That's obviously not true, but it's part of our growing wave of misinformation and disinformation around trans topics. We know that the Nazis burned thousands of books on LGBTQ+ topics in this square, including pioneering research on trans identities and gender-affirming care. We also know that trans people were also victims of the Nazis' persecution of the LGBTQ+ community, even though some still claim that gay men were the only ones that were persecuted. You don't have to believe me. Just listen to the executive director of a German LGBTQ+ foundation named after a gay Jewish physician that represented everything that the Nazis hated.
Der Nationalsozialismus hat sich gegen alles gerichtet, was den heteronormativen Vorstellungen der Volksgemeinschaft widersprochen hat. Und dazu gehören auch Menschen, die nicht cisgeschlechtlich oder gar non-binär gewesen sind. Es ist zwar richtig, dass der Paragraph 175 nur männliche Homosexualität bestraft hat, aber es gab andere Möglichkeiten, über das Strafgesetzbuch Menschen zu belangen, ins Gefängnis zu bringen.
You can follow me for more videos on queer topics and misinformation.
A lot of the language that I use in this video is very much how influencers talk. You can follow me for more videos on this. You might have heard this. This was after there was a huge online conversation after a very well-known person claimed that the Nazis had not targeted gender-affirming care. In the end, what we're trying to do is to build that trust that people are losing in the media, possibly for some valid reasons sometimes, and build it with us, either as individual journalists or as someone that works for a newspaper that the people know by their name, Carmela, who lives in DC. And I think it's very important to build that trust through honesty and transparency. You're telling people where the information is coming from, you're telling people the limits to your knowledge. You don't have to believe me. Let's talk to this expert, this person who's working for a foundation that for years has been working exclusively on this topic. And I think people really value that, and because they have stopped seeing that in at least the image that they have of traditional journalism.
One thing I think Enrique does really well that you also saw in this video is he's talking to you literally just like a friend. It feels like you're on a video call with him or something. And I think taking to note his inflection, his tone, again, how casually he's speaking, you feel like a friend is telling you the information, that really builds a connection with the audience. And then when audiences see you again and again, they know you as, oh, Enrique is my friend. He's going to tell me about interesting news. He's going to break topics down, and I trust him.
One element of that trust, and before we talk about this, what I think people literally write me to cover topics and to debunk stuff, which is insane. Like, you're just a person. But it is that trust that they have built with you that leads them to doing that. And why are they not writing Reuters? Why are they not writing my employer? Why are they not writing someone else to cover this? But they're writing me individually, even though I'm no one. Right? So that is, I think, what we want to click in people's minds, that they can trust us as journalists or as media outlets.
Absolutely. And this is our final slide, so we're going to do a question and answer after, so start thinking of your questions. But when it comes to measuring success, what does that look like? Of course, views are really valuable. Everyone wants to get millions and millions of views and go super, super viral and be fantastic and slay and amazing. But there are other things you can look at as well. Views aren't everything. I look often at what does the engagement tell us? What are people saying in the comments? Do they appreciate the work that we're doing? Do they feel seen? Do they understand something better? Are they confused? Do they want something explained better? Those are the kinds of things that tell us that our work we're doing is really valuable, even if certain videos don't get the most views. And then we're also looking at shares. Are people sharing this with their friends and family? Are the shares much higher than the likes? Sometimes there are certain videos that get shared a lot, particularly like with the misinformation videos of people sharing, maybe sending them to their families.
So do you have any questions for us?
I think we're waiting for a microphone as well to make sure that you're heard, but there's one in the front. Also, I appreciate you've had a question at like every session. Thanks for being engaged. They're coming. Yes.
You ignore that journalists can be influencers. Can influencer, TikTok, Instagram influencer be journal? I mean, can people such a whole lot of Andrew Tate be journalists?
I can answer that question telling you that I'm going to have an announcement directly related to that in 2 or 3 weeks, so watch this space. But I think I like to say that to me, journalism is not something you are, it's something you do. If you call yourself a journalist, you've studied journalism, but you don't follow journalistic standards. We all know media outlets that at some points haven't done that. Are you a journalist? Are you doing journalism? I don't know. I think that news creators, influencers, however you want to call them, there's a very negative undertone sometimes to the word influencer. They can do journalism, and we actually have seen in Ukraine, in Gaza, a lot of creators that have done journalism for different reasons. Media outlets couldn't be there, so my answer will be yes, as long as they follow journalistic standards.
Yes, down here in the front.
Thanks, this is very interesting. Maybe hooking into what the previous person asked. Enrique, you work at the Thomson Reuters Foundation. Carmela, you work at the Washington Post. You're not quite random people. You are backed by huge machines. Have you got examples of people that do similar work like yourselves, but are just random schmoes on an attic somewhere doing it because they like doing it?
Examples of people that are doing what we do?
Yeah, but are not backed by huge organizations.
Yeah, I mean, maybe... Yeah, I mean, if you go on TikTok, I think there's a big creator in the US, Erin Reed, I think. They are a trans person who basically has created a journalism project covering all kinds of trans-related policies across the US and has become one of the main sources for that information. And they started as an activist, but because the coverage was either misleading or not good enough, basically have turned to them as the main source of information. That's the example that I know because I cover the topic. I think there's a lot of people out there. Also, the people that we know are mostly based in the global north and in English-speaking countries. I always remind it, there's a whole world outside English, although main conferences are in English, but most of the people we know work in English. They're in the US or the UK, but there's a lot of people out there doing a really good job. I guess we cannot name all of them, but I would say that you can find them in basically every single topic.
Yeah, another creator from the US that has worked with us, but they worked with us because they built their own following independently, is V from Under the Desk News, also a creator in the United States. They were a caterer. That was their previous career in DC, and then during the pandemic, they started their TikTok channel and started doing news from under a desk just to tell people what's going on. And they've built a really big following, and so much so that they've worked with big news organizations, and so it's definitely possible. It takes time and it takes a lot of work. They put in a ton of work, but there are definitely creators who do that. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about where your videos are actually appearing. Do you know how your videos are pushed by algorithms on TikTok, YouTube Short, and what else? I'm asking because on Facebook, for example, if fact checkers flag certain content, if this organization's third-party fact checker, those people who are exposed to misinformation will get the notification. In this case, in TikTok, so many people are exposed to misinformation videos, like people in Ohio, people are eating cats. Are they getting your videos at the same time? Once you fact check, is there an algorithm that is pushing your content to those people who are exposed to misinformation? And if not, is the organization pushing for that kind of a system?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't know that information because we work at the news orgs and not at the social media companies. And the good thing about my job in particular is that there are a bunch of people who are higher up than me who are responsible for making those decisions. I'm not necessarily privy to those conversations. I would hope they're happening. I'm sure they are, but I can't confidently say if it's happening or if it's not happening. I just know that my job is to look at what's happening within the communities that we've built and answer those questions and maintain that relationship. We have one down in the front. Thank you.
Thank you, great presentation. I'm a founder of a fact-checking organization, and we started to make some, let's say, demo steps in making TikToks. A major issue we find out is in complicated matters, there is a trade-off between the depth that you can get into and the time limit of TikTok. So I wanted to ask if, in your experience, there is a hard limit on 1 minute after which you see a great reduction in engagement, or if you are more flexible in that aspect?
For us, we can be more flexible. Certain videos, though, when they run longer, will just, to clarify, on YouTube Shorts, they have a hard limit of 60 seconds. After 60 seconds, it's no longer YouTube Short, and it'll publish as a horizontal video instead. So it'll still publish, but it won't look native, and it'll be kind of ugly. So we try and avoid that. With the Donald Trump video that I showed at the beginning, that we didn't post that, or I opted to post it in 2 separate parts, which don't necessarily do as well as having it all encompassed in one. But then on TikTok itself, I think they have a longer limit. They have a 10-minute limit. And so we opted to publish that on TikTok, and it performed really well. The engagement did really well. It got over 1 million views. It really is case by case. And sometimes it's looking at an issue and saying, okay, how granular can I make it? Can I make it really small and really specific so that way it can fit in that time limit? But it's challenging, for sure. How about for you?
I also think that, just to repeat, it's not necessarily directly answering your question. The views aren't everything. Engagement is part of it, but impact, which is really hard to define, as we all know, is much more important. And in a way, I find that the internet and in the misinformation space is much more defined by small bubbles, online bubbles, than by big, let's say, spreaders or misinformation. In the India election, there was a lot of reporting around micro-influencers, so people that have between, let's say, 10K and 40K followers, being the main danger for spreading misinformation, for publishing politically sponsored content. Because the thing is that if you follow a person with 1 million followers because they're hot and they publish something that is something maybe you know it's a little bit misleading, you might not necessarily believe them because you follow them because they're hot. But if you follow someone because they're doing a great job covering your community, for example, and they publish something, you're much more likely to believe them, or because they do a great work around climate change or around X topic that interests you. So I think it's time to start talking about like views, only engagement and all of that, and try to see what the impact is. And Carmela talked very well, like what people say in the comments, how much people share a video, how many people save the video to rewatch it later, because views, as she said, aren't everything at all.
Thank you very much. We're out of time, but we appreciate your time. Do one more?
No, we're here.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions, we'll be around. Voting. Thank you.